This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, friends. Welcome to GoOnlineTrainings.com. We are talking about TSQL programming. So that is Transact SQL programming. This is used to create store procedures, triggers, and functions. Okay. If you wanted to implement complex programming, definitely you need to go in for Transact SQL programming. So it is very, very simple as compared to C language or Java language. Java and C languages are oceans. Okay, they have a lot of features, but we don't have too many features as part of okay. So we don't have too many features as part of our programming. So in this, we are going to be discussing very, very, basic programming as part of T-SQL. So we are going to be discussing about local variables, global variables, and if and else return statement loops and printing, to display the data in SQL we use a select, right? Select something, it's going to be displaying the data. But here we're going to be using a printing statement to display the data, and try catch blocks and all other things we're going to be implementing as part of our store procedures. Am I clear? So to centralize the code, we have a view, we have a stored procedure, and we have function, right? So now we wanted to understand what is a variable today. So now let me go back to my SQL server. So already we discussed what is a variable. There are two types of variables. One is called local variable. The next one is global variable. So variables are used to store the data in your memory. Memory means RAM. So how to declare the variable we had seen yesterday. So if you wanted to learn a programming, first you should know how to declare a variable. In C language, Java, we cannot directly store the data anywhere else, right? So the data can be stored as part of the table or as part of the file, right? So, but if you wanted to store the data in a programming, we must create a variable. Variables are created in the RAM or memory. So what is the syntax? Declare at the rate symbol and salary. It is an integer, right? So how do you read this? How do you read this? It's very, very important to read. Salary is a variable which is capable of storing an integer. Okay, so you should not say salary is an integer. If salary is an integer, then what is integer then? So many people will say salary is integer. No, that is wrong way of saying. Clear? Salary is not an integer. Salary is a variable which is capable of storing an integer. Am I clear? So variable can store only a single value. When you wanted to store the second value, first value will get replaced with the second value. So that's what is one more thing that you need to understand. So to store value in a variable, use following syntax. So set variable name, and you need to prefix at the rate symbol and the value, right? So you can print. So this is SQL syntax. This is T-SQL syntax to display the data, to print the data. Clear? To read the data. So set salary is equivalent to 2000. And if you wanted to read the value from a variable, so this is what you need to do. Select. This is the SQL syntax. This is the programming syntax. Printing. In C language, we have a printf. In C language, we have a printf, but here we have a print function to display the data. Am I clear? So now, if you wanted to select or read, you should be able to do like this. Let me quickly go to new query window and create some variable. So declare at the rate x integer, and you can say set at the rate x is equivalent to 10. Okay, so this value is equals to 10, and you can declare one more variable. Declare at the rate y integer, and set at the rate y is equivalent to 20, right? Now I wanted to create one more variable, declare at the rate z is also integer and set at the rate z is equivalent to at the rate x plus at the rate y. Clear? So what will happen? You are going to be having 10 plus 20 data. It will get added and that is going to be stored in z variable. Clear? Now I wanted to print at the rate z. Clear? So you should be able to see 30 here. So this is what you should be able to understand. It is a simple a programming. So there is a RAM. So you understand this is your RAM, okay? So you should not think that this data is available in the master database. No, never. Clear? It is not going to go to master database. This is what is called your RAM memory. Clear? So what will happen? All the data. So this creates a block called X. This create a block called y. What is the size of the block? Integer is 4 bytes. Integer is 4 bytes. So at the rate x value, x gets created, at the rate y gets created, at the rate z gets created. Am I clear? So three is blocks, and here it is going to be placing a 10. In this block, it is going to be placing 20, and x plus y will get added. You will get 30. 30 will get placed in z. Clear? You're going to be printing this display z. Clear? So the execution is from top to bottom. This is what is called a programming. Okay, so this cannot be done in SQL. SQL will not support print. SQL will not support declare. So this is what is called as T-SQL programming. Clear? So this is, writing a variable, writing, all these things are part of T-SQL programming. But if I wanted to reuse the code, reuse means I would like to store this code somewhere. Now, if I close the window, what happens? All the programming is going to go away because it is not going to store anywhere, right? If you wanted to store this program, because we cannot keep as part of the view because view does not support a programming, right, to centralize the code. So the next one you can use either stored procedure or next one you can use a function, right? So in this two places, you should be able to keep your this programming because programming can be supported by stored procedures and functions only. So views, stored procedures and functions, these are the things are available to centralize your code. To centralize your data, we are going to be creating tables here. So stored procedures functions where you can write your code. So in the view you cannot write a programming means if you wanted to declare variables or or do some kind of a stuff like this, definitely views cannot be supported. Am I clear? So you have only two possibilities: either you can go in for a stored procedure or you can go in for a function. Triggers also can be used where you can also implement a programming. But the purpose of the trigger is called as to validate the data. Clear? So one more concept where programming can be written and it can be centralized, that is a trigger. But purpose of the trigger we'll see later. So triggers are used to validate the data. Clear? So let us talk about this later. But in this also you should be able to use a programming. Clear? So stored processes and functions and views are there to centralize your code. Triggers are similar to a check constraint, right? So check constraint, I think we had seen gender can be either male or female. Salary is greater than zero. So if you have those kind of validations that can be implemented as part of your check constraint. If the validation is complex, then check constraints cannot be used. So in that place, we are going to use a triggers. Clear? So triggers are used to validate the data. Clear? Triggers are used to validate the data. Again, you should be able to centralize your code, but normally in your companies, you centralize the data in a tables. If you wanted to centralize the code, we have a views and stored procedures functions only. Triggers are there, but it is to validate the data. Clear? So maximum time, views only 10% we're going to be writing, and the functions also we write 10%, and triggers and all we use only 5% because triggers are performance wise very very bad. Clear? So remaining 75% of your code in a database will be in your stored procedures only. Sometimes it goes to 80% also. Am I clear? So maximum time when you go in for a SQL developer or BA developer, so you will have a SSIS and SSRS. Along with, you will have to write lot of stored procedures. Clear? So you're not there to create a table, drop a table, insert the data, delete the data. That will be there 1 or 2% of chances. Okay, remaining 70 to 80% of the time, you may be working with stored procedures, or you may be working with completely SQL and T-SQL, but not a view or a query, or any DDL, DML, something like that. Yeah, am I clear? So if you wanted to reuse this code, means you need to go in for a stored procedure only, nothing else. Clear? So this is what is called a programming. So where the memory blocks getting allocated is in hard disk? No. Is it in a database? No. So even though I'm in master database, I'm in Indian bank database, or I may be in iBank database, remember all these variables are not going to touch, or all the variables are not going to touch anything from your iBank. So when you execute, this program is going to be executed in the RAM. Programming means RAM. You know, database means a hard disk, because if you store the data today, after 100 years also, your data is safe. Clear? So this is a 10 and 20 is not going to be stored in your disk. Clear? So remember, so programs cannot store unlimited data. Now we can store, millions of data here, right? So this is how we write the program in your Java. Clear? So, but end of the day, you cannot store 1 million rows into a RAM, right? So what you do? Always you store a single row. Yesterday, I was talking about, right? Even though you have 1 million data, you create three variables, and always you get a row by row. So even though you have millions of data in your database, so always RAM gets row by row, and that is going to be processed. That is going to be processed in your processor. Clear? So that is how you need to understand. So you may write all the statements like this, or write all the set statements here and declare all these things there. So that is also fine. This is writing all variables first. Clear? And take these variables up. Okay, so now we can say like this. Okay, set x, set y, set z. So whatever you want to have, you can have it. So you can have any value here for 45 and 50, and I wanted to know what is a z value. It is 95. So let me comment this. Let me comment. I don't want to give all of them. I can also give like this. Okay, so x plus y value, it is going to be printing. Let me print the value is equivalent to 95. Clear? So if you wanted to print with the select is a SQL command. Print is a TSQL command, a transact SQL command. When you say select, it's going to be creating a table. You can write as total. So you can write like this and press F5. So it is nothing to do with iBank. Remember this, all of them are going to be created in your RAM. So 95 is the total. But when you use a print, when you use a print, you cannot give like this. It is not going to work. So it is completely irrelevant data. Clear? You cannot give as. Clear? So if you can give both, select this one. So both of them can be given. So this is going to be creating So now you see you have a result because of this guy. So as total, total value. Okay. So when you execute it, you will be able to see total value. When you go to message, so this is 95. So print always displays the data in the message. Have you seen this? What is this message? Okay. You have a result. It is a table format. Have you seen small table here? So it is because of the select. Select is going to be displaying the data in a table. Print is going to be displaying the data in a messages. Clear? So you will have two windows getting created. Window number one result, window number two messages. Clear? So programming is going to be using a printing. SQL is always going to be using a select. Am I clear? So if you observe carefully, so if I remove this, if I remove or if I comment this out, when you execute the data, you see only message. Okay. But if I say remove this and if I have only select, so you see both of them are now available. In results window, you have 95, messages window, one row affected. It is going to be printing something like this. Am I clear? So you should be able to understand these printing statements. So both of them, if you wanted to use it, you should be able to use it. This is what is my program. So creating three variables, and I don't want to store anything in the Z. We can remove this. We can or comment this. Comment means it is not going to be used. Clear? So you should be able to execute like this. So you can also see some data. You are able to see total value, but that cannot be used here as total value. But if you wanted to implement total value, you need to say like this. There is a plus means constant. This is total value. Total value is equivalent to, okay, because this is what is called concatenation. This is a constant, right? This is what is called plus concatenation, the value. Now if I execute, we know that we get an error. Why? Because x is integer, y is integer, you get 45 plus 50 95. So plus this is a string, and this is an integer, it is not going to display. So you need to cast this value as varchar. Clear? So if you wanted to display some data, so this is how you should be able to write. So let me execute it. Now you're able to see 95 here. Now you're able to see total value is equals to 95. Have you seen this? How did you get? Because of the printing. So this is what is called a constant, and plus this is concatenation 95. Before printing it, I'm casting this. Or we can also simply use a Z and simply use Z here and display the Z here. That will be the easiest, and neatly you're writing the programming because X value, Y value will go to Z. Now you're simply printing Z. So now here also to simply print the Z. Clear? Let me execute it. Now you are able to see total value is equivalent to 95 now in your results. So this is the value that you can see. Am I clear? So very, very simple. You can write the programmings. Now, I wanted to do any other, this one. So now I wanted to close this program. So close this program. Now closed it. Now I wanted to get that back. Can I get it back? Because it is not stored anywhere. If you wanted to store the program, so you can either create a function or create a stored procedure only. Have you seen it? Now, if you wanted to centralize the program, you can go in for a stored procedure. Now, let me introduce how to create a stored procedure. Okay. So syntax, if you wanted to know, because we have to start writing the stored proc. So stored proc syntax is very, very simple. Create proc and proc name, sp name, and open the bracket, close the bracket. You can have here input comma, you can have output parameter. Okay, so there are input and output parameters that we're going to be having. Input parameter to supply the data to the stored procedure. Output parameters are used to return the data from the stored procedure. Now, as begin and end. So what all you can write as part of begin and end? You need to simply say all SQL is supported and all T-SQL commands are supported. That's it. In very simple. So what all you can write? You can write anything. All SQL. SQL means now you know DDL, DML, TCL, and DCL. Everything. And you can create temporary tables. You can create a table, create and drop table, alter a table, everything can be done. Drop, create, alter, anything can done. So DDL means what? So create, alter, drop, truncate. DML means insert, everything. Am I clear? So each and everything is allowed. All temp tables, table variables, everything is allowed. Not only that, you should be able to call, you should be able to call a view inside a stored procedure. You can call another stored procedure. You can call a function inside that. Clear? So you can call everything. You can create a temporary table. Whatever you wanted to do, everything you can create as part of your SQL. Clear? Call a view, call one more stored procedure inside the stored procedure, call a function, and a T-SQL statement means complete programming can be written. Complete programming can be written. So this is what is the beauty about a stored procedure. Clear? Stored procedure syntax is create a proc name. So you can have input and output parameters as begin and you need to say go. Clear? So if you wanted to write only programming, so I don't need this, then you can remove this, then you can have only programming. Or I wanted to have only SQL, I don't need this, that is also fine, you can have only this. So whatever you wanted to have, if you wanted to have compulsorily programming means, and definitely and all the things TDL, DML, insert, update, delete, drop, create. You can also create a table inside this. So this is going to be creating a table, and it can be dropping a table, it can alter a table, it can create a database. Whatever the command that you write, that will get executed. Clear? So extra line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 lines. 8 lines when you write, you should be able to create a stored procedure. Stored procedure is used to centralize your code. Clear? So if you write a programming means the programming can be there as part of your stored proc only. Now, so this is how I should be able to write the programming. Now I have closed the program. It is nowhere. Now I wanted to write a programming. Let us say use iBank go. So I want to declare a simple statement. Declare at the rate x is integer and declare at the rate y is also integer and declare at the rate z is also integer. Okay. Now we know set at the rate z is equivalent to at the rate x plus at the rate y. Clear? So and I wanted to print at the rate z. So this is what is my program. But sorry, I wanted to give these values, right? Set at the rate x equals to 10 and set at the rate y equals to 20. Now execute this, you're able to get 30, right? So I wanted to create a program. Simply you say create proc name. You can say user stored procedure and add numbers. Okay, add numbers. So as begin. Clear? So this is the complete program. So in this, you're going to be using end. Clear? So this is what is the program that we're going to be writing. Now, why am I writing here? So without that also it is now executing. Why are we writing? Because I wanted to store this as part of my iBank. The code is stored, but when you execute the program will create all the memory blocks in your RAM. Clear? Let me create the proc. Created. create a proc name. So if you don't have any input and output parameter, so this is optional. So you can simply remove that. Clear? So you can say create a proc name as begin blah blah blah. Clear? So that is what I have written. So input and output parameters are not compulsorily given. So this is what is your program. Now you can close this window. Closed. Now where is the program? Now you go refresh it. Now you should be able to go here and go to programmability. Now go to stored procedure where you can see people who missed the previous classes. So please watch and take the notes without fail, right? So don't underestimate any simple point, guys. Okay, so watch the videos. So from T-SQL programming, I think you have 5 to 6 classes are available. Please watch. Okay. Now you have many things are available. Now I have created added two numbers. This is the stored procedure. If you wanted to see the code of the stored procedure, you need to go to iBank. Okay. Then go to programmability and expand it. Now, if you wanted to see the code of a stored procedure, okay. So what is that we're going to be doing it? So you can simply go, where is my stored proc? So two numbers, this is my stored proc. Right click on this modify, clear? Or if you wanted to see the complete script stored procedure, you can also create a script window or you can click on modify. When you click on a modify, so you will be able to get remove these three lines. Now you see alt proc name. So this is the program. If you wanted to modify, instead of a create, you have to put alter, and you wanted to modify something, you can modify. So this is a program you can get at any time. If you want to alter and execute it, now again close this. Clear? So always you should be able to see the program like this. What is the code internally you have written? So that can be seen as part of your programmability. So that is how you create a stored proc. But how can we call a stored proc? Okay, because end of the day, executing or calling a stored proc is also important. How do you execute a stored procedure? Execute stored proc name. So the disadvantage of the stored proc is you cannot call as part of a stored proc like this. So this is completely invalid statement. Clear? So select stored proc name we cannot write. Execute stored proc name can be written. So how can we call a view? Because already we knew that select star from the view name, right? So that is what we had seen. So you can call the view as part of your select, right? So that is the advantage, or as part of your insert, update, delete everywhere, right? So call the view can be done in select. And how can we call a function? So you can write select get date. So where are we calling this? Okay, so function can be called as part of select or insert or update or delete, right? So this is also as part of select, insert, update, delete. But only the problem with the stored procedure is you will not be able to call a stored procedure as part of this. So this is what is the disadvantage. What is that? So the disadvantage cannot be called as part of what? Insert or update or delete or select. Only this is the major disadvantage of a stored procedure. Okay, so you need to use a special syntax exec, or you can write execute. Okay, stored proc name. Now I go, I have created a stored proc. Now I wanted to call a stored proc. So calling a stored proc means you should know stored proc name. What is the stored proc name? Add numbers. So this is a stored proc name. You can remove this DBO and everything. you can remove these brackets and make sure you need to execute in iBank. Why? This program is available in iBank. So that's it. Okay. So now this is going to print this value, right? So now if somebody asks me, it is always printing me 30, it is always printing me 30. I wanted to supply a data because see if I give 10 and 20, it should give you 30. But I wanted to give my own numbers. Now can I supply the data to the stored procedure? The answer is yes. So that is where we are going to be using input parameter. Okay, because now this value is already there. What is the value 10 and 20? That you cannot change it. If you wanted to change it, every time you need to go here, right click modify and modify the code, and the code has to be changed. So now I go here, I give 50, I give, let us say, 230. Now I wanted to alter my code. So I need to rewrite the program. So rewriting it, let me execute this. Now what will happen? Now you're able to get a 280. So every time a developer has to modify the code, that is completely wrong, because when you go to the bank as a customer, so no developer is going to be there. You should be able to supply whatever you wanted to have it. But how do you supply your input to the stored procedure? So that is when we are going to be using input parameters. Input parameters are used to the stored procedure to take a customer's input. For example, you go to ATM. I wanted to withdraw 1,000 cash. So the in 1,000, how much amount you wanted to withdraw? That is the input parameter. Clear? And you say I wanted to withdraw $10,000 or 10,000 rupees. So my card is this card, my card is that card, right? When you insert, card number is taken automatically, and you say I wanted to withdraw 10,000 cash. These are the two input parameters. So that's what you need to understand. So how do you interact with the stored procedure? By using input parameter. So that is where, so we are going to be modifying. What is the issue here? Every time it is going to be giving you 280. Now I need to supply two values as an end user, and I wanted to call this. Now to do that, what normally we do, we go right click and modify the code. Okay, now you remove everything, and now this is what is a program, right? So make sure that the program is an iBank database. Now, so these are the two variables, whatever you create as part of, so these are called two variables, right? So now I wanted to declare a parameter. Parameter means it is used to, supply the data to the program. So, when you say declare at the rate x, which is a variable and which is also variable, now you need to remove these two from here, and you have to keep, and you need to remove declare and declare, and put comma. Okay, so these two are called two input parameters. Okay, input parameters, just like variables only, these are also getting created in your RAM. Clear? But declare should not be there. It has to be there within the braces. What is the purpose of this? Purpose of this is to supply the data. Okay, it is not going to be holding the data, as a variable, because variable keep storing the data, and the data also, you can have 10, you can have 20, you can have 30. So the data can change. Variable means the data can change. Parameters means the data cannot be changed. Clear? So parameter are going to be, holding some data, from starting to end. It is going to be used to supply the data. So what is the need here? I wanted to give my two numbers to the program. So will I create a variable? No. Variables are created after begin, and you must use a declare statement. So I wanted to supply data as in parameters. These are input parameters, x value, y value, you need to supply, and that x and y You should not be taking it from like this, because if you give, you can also supply like this, but I don't want to supply as my program. The customer has to supply from his end. Clear? So I'm creating one variable, and I'm saying whatever be the x value the customer is providing, it will go there, and y value, and printing z. Like this is the program with the input parameter. You can have any number of input parameters. Parameters are used to receive the data from the end user. Clear? You go to ATM and you say, I wanted to withdraw 10,000 rupees, $10,000. That is what is called a input parameter only has to be there. Let me modify, alter. Clear? Done. Now how do I execute this? Let me. So I cannot execute like this because it is going to be taking two parameters, right? So you need to supply first value 10, second value 20. So this is how the parameters can be supplied. Execute, you're able to get 30. Now I want to supply 50 comma 400. Now this is how the program is going to be executed. Clear? Now you assume you go to the ATM. What you do? So you wanted to know your balance, right? For example, you wanted to know your balance. Now what will be the program there? What will be the program there? Because if you wanted to know only your balance, select C balance from account master table, right? Now where your account number, where account ID is equivalent to your account number, could be 1 to 1 your account number. So you should be able to see this. But now it is not your account number. You need to take the account number of that customer, whoever is doing at the moment. So if you wanted to create a proc, because you cannot have a view. Why? Because a view cannot have a programming. You cannot have a input parameters. Clear? So definitely getting a C balance or getting my balance is not a view. It can be either a function, or it can be a simply a stored procedure. So how can we write? So you need to write create proc, okay, user stored procedure, get my account balance. Okay. Now you need to supply your account ID, right? So what is your account ID? If you go to your table, so your account ID is, what is the account ID, which is integer? You need to write account ID, which is integer, which is the input parameter, right? So this thing is going to go here, and you say as begin. Okay, then this is what is your program. Now you should be able to write and that's it. So create a proc name, blah blah blah. Now you should be able to execute. Programming is done. Clear? So which is going to be taking one input parameter, and all ATMs will call this proc. Okay, so you assume that you are inside the bank. You are using a machine, ATM machine. You insert your ATM card, debit card. So it is going to be reading the data. Clear? So the reading is done by the .NET programming, right? So ATM is going to be functioning with the help of a Java and .NET. When you insert your code, .NET is going to be reading the card data. The data is going to be captured. The record number, the account number is going to be captured by .NET. Clear? But .NET is going to be calling this guy, because .NET does not know what is your balance, right? So .NET will call, you go to the ATM, you insert the card, you give your password, and withdraw balance, or get my balance. Click on that button. When you click on that button, .NET program is going to be calling a stored procedure. So the .NET will call like this. .NET will have a call execute stored proc name, and your .NET would have read your card number. Your card number, let us say 134. Clear? So this is going to be taken and put. So this is the call .NET is going to be making and executing. So your account balance is 10,000. So whatever the the thing that is been written, so that will come here. Okay, that will come here. So if you give tomorrow your account number is 102, so you should be able to call like this. Now your balance is this much. Clear? So how the programming, so this is how a stored proc is written, and this is how a .NET Java is calling, client applications are calling your program. Clear? Why did we create a stored procedure? Because input parameters cannot be used in a view. So view doesn't have a programming because parameters variables are a part of programming. So programming is not allowed in a view. Either you can create a procedure or you can create a function. Clear? And a stored proc you can call manually. A view you can call manually, and a function also you can call manually. Clear? I have centralized my code. If I don't create like this, now if I give you only this statement to the client, because this is what is a single line code you're giving, and if you write the code in your .NET or Java, so you're exposing all the table names, you're exposing the complete code to the .NET. So this is what is called dangerous. Okay, you never ever centralize complete code to Java .NET, guys. You always, the communication has to happen through view, through stored procedure, through functions only. So I told you, why are we creating a stored procedure? Because I wanted to centralize my code, apply security. I wanted to hide my logic. So if the client is calling means what is the code as part of this program, the client Java .NET application does not know about it. Clear? So anybody can hack the client Java application, so they can see maximum this, they cannot so beyond this. Clear? So a lot of things are hidden because of your view, stored procedure and function, and it may be single line, it may be 10,000 line of code. Clear? So the Java .NET not worried about the lines of code. So always the client communication will be happening. How a client is communicating to the server, either it can call a view, or it can call a stored procedure, or it can call a function. Client machine means your Android mobile phone is a client, your ATM machine is a client, your you know mm, you go to amazon.com, that is my laptop is a client laptop. Am I clear? So the client communication is going to be happening by calling a stored procedure or by calling a function. You assume now I am writing something here, okay, or I'm clicking on a baby beauty products. So what is the meaning? When I choose beauty, now there is a compulsorily input parameter. Clear? So when I choose baby, so baby products or beauty products or books, and if I click on this search button, so what will happen? There is a proc. Create a proc, get all products, input parameters books. Clear? And there is a category table. So select star from category table where category equals to books, and all the books will be written. Now it will give you the data. When I click on this, behind this button, there is a stored procedure. Stored procedure is taking one input parameter. What is it? Books. Now, see, you can choose only one, you cannot choose multiple, because we know either variable or is either variable or a parameter can hold a single value. Now how many products you can select? Now here clearly they have written the program, at a time you can choose only one item. See why one item? Because a a input parameter means just like a variable only, so it is going to be created in your RAM. So this is your RAM. So now in my machine, it is going to be created a product category. I say books. Clear? So books is going to be created. Now it is going to be calling. So at the time of calling, what will happen? So it is going to be creating USP get the products, now space the category called books. Okay, so this line of code is going to go, and this is what is called Amazon database somewhere. So this stored proc will get executed, and all the data is available here. The stored proc is available here. You're calling this stored proc. Stored proc will go get the data, and it is going to be giving the result set. Now it is going to display the products here in the night neatly manner. So the displaying will be done by the .NET or Java guys. Clear? Because the SQL server is going to be displaying the data in a table format. Now, if I go see my data, now this is how I am going to be, okay, I am getting the data. But I wanted to see the data books and click on this. Now see how the products are going to be displayed. So now do you think that this is how the products are getting displayed? So you never think that the data is available like this. Data is available in the table format, but the display is happening like this. From where you got the photo, you got these colors and everything. All these colors and hyperlinks, everything is happening at the Java side, .NET side. Okay, this is what is called a data visualization. You can display the data in beautiful format. Clear? So that can be done by the front end applications like Java, .NET, AngularJS, SAP, Android, iOS mobile phones. All these things are displaying the data, but this data is not stored in the RDBMS like this. Clear? So now what is executed? So a stored proc is executed that you are not aware of. Clear? So always you choose one product, apples and games products. So when you execute this, stored proc is bringing you the data. Clear? So this is the data I got it. Now there is a stored proc is getting executed electronics. When I click on this, so there is a stored proc. Clear? So this is input parameter and there is a stored proc. The input parameter is taken electronics product. It's going to be getting from the Amazon database. Clear, guys? And this is how you should be able to understand how the front end and back end is communicating. You assume that there is a stored proc which is being called. What stored proc? That you cannot see. Only the Amazon creators, the developers of this page, so they can only know. So as a end user, you don't know which stored proc is being called. Nobody knows about it. So only the creators of this site, they know what stored proc they're calling. So technically, you should be able to see this program. Am I clear? So now, if you wanted to give input parameter, the input parameter is always chosen by the end user. If you don't have input parameter, then you cannot choose whether you need books or electronics or stationery. That kind of a selecting option will not be there at the website side. Clear? If somebody is selecting something means that will be input parameter to the stored proc only. 99% of the time we are calling stored procs only whenever you have an interactive program. Interactive program means you are selecting something and you need only that data. I wanted to see jobs in Chicago, jobs in Canada, so you are choosing Canada, right? So you wanted to get jobs of Canada only, jobs of Chicago only. Am I clear? So that is the input parameter. So always the communication is going to be happening via a stored procedure with the input parameter. Am I clear? So this is how you have to call. If you don't give input parameter, it is going to be asking you, sorry, when you execute this, it is telling me, see, expects a parameter, account ID is missing, which was not supplied. So you need to compulsorily supply your account, this one. Clear? But if you give a wrong account number, for example, I don't have this bigger number in my table, now what will happen? You don't get anything. So this is what is called bad. Clear? So how can we say this account number is invalid? That we'll see in tomorrow's class. Clear? Thank you guys. Any questions?